Sencha charting makes it easy to show large sets of data on both mobile and desktop. With Sencha Architect, setting up a project to take advantage of this rich charting capability is fast, straightforward, and requires little code. This screencast will show you how to add both bar charts and line charts into a Sencha Touch application. You can find the source code for this demonstration on GitHub. As a starting point, we'll use this basic app. Here we have a list of companies, and if I tap on any one of them, it slides over to a panel with a few extra details about that company. In this toolbar at the bottom of the interface, we have a Show Chart button. When I tap it, the main panel flips round to show a blank page. As the title bar suggests, we're going to add a line chart to this panel. Now I'm going to hide the chart and switch back to the list view. This time, when I press the Show Chart button, it flips over to show a placeholder for a bar chart. Let's start by adding a bar chart. The data that we're going to put in this chart is available at the URL /API/stats. Each company is listed with an ID, name, industry, revenue, and the number of employees. In Architect, I've already created a company model with fields that match those in the JSON file. I've also created a company store, which is set to auto-load data from the URL where our company's JSON file is located. If I right-click on the store and select the item Load Data, Architect will fetch the data across the network, and we can inspect it by pressing the View icon here. Our design already contains a few pieces. Let's add a bar chart. In the toolbox search field, I'll type the word bar, and it filters down the list of matches. The one we want is the bar chart, so I'll drag it and drop it onto the Views node in the Project Explorer. Straight away, the design view is updated with a sample chart. Now let's configure this bar chart to make it use the data from our store. First, we'll rename it to something more descriptive and give it an alias for easy reference. This gives our bar chart an X type. Then we'll set the store property to our company store. That clears the placeholder data. Next, we'll configure the axes. We want to set a field on the category axis to name, and the numeric axis will display revenue. We can delete these additional fields from the placeholder dataset. Now let's configure the data series. Once again, we'll set the x-axis to match the name field of our model. And we'll discard two of these placeholder fields on the y-axis, and then set the last one to revenue. Boom! Our design view instantly updates to show a chart of the specified data. If we preview the app in the browser now, we still can't see the bar chart. The final step is to change the handler for this button so that it adds a chart to this placeholder panel. I've already set up an action for this button, and we only need to add a single line of code to add a company bar chart to the chart container. The cont variable represents our chart container. Here, we're simply adding a new instance of our chart component to the container. Note that we're using the company bar chart X type, which we assigned to the chart component as an alias. Let's save the project and take a look in the browser. Now, when I press the Show Chart button, it reveals our bar chart. It's just as easy to add a line chart. The data for the line charts is available at a URL of the form /API/stock_data and then a number.json. This time, each record just has two fields, a date and the opening price. There's a fake dataset for each of the companies, and if we change the digit to the ID of the company whose data we want to look at, we can get it. We've already got a model and store configured to fetch and parse this data, and if I press the View icon, we can view the data right inside Architect. I'll locate the line chart in the toolbox, then drag it onto the views in the Project Explorer. I'll rename the class to Company Stock Chart and give it an alias. Then I'll set the store to Stock Data Store. By default, the x-axis is set to be displayed on a category axis. But we've got a series of timestamped records, so let's transform this class to a time axis. Then we'll set the field to date. On the numeric axis, we want to show the opening price of the stock. We'll discard the second placeholder field, as well as the second time series. Now let's set the X and Y fields of the line series to date and open. And there we have our chart. Note that if we change the orientation of the simulator, the chart immediately adapts to the viewport ratio. We need to add our line chart to the app when the Show Chart button is clicked. Again, that just involves adding a single line of code to the existing button handler. In this example, the code is already in place to load the data fresh from the stock data store. If we look at the Show Detail View controller action, we'll see here that the API endpoint is updated to use the ID of the selected company. Now let's have a look at that in the browser. I'll switch to a detail view, and now when I press Show Chart, it reveals our line chart. Back into list view, if I press the same button, it toggles our bar chart. Sencha Architect enables you to rapidly and visually add charting to any mobile or desktop application. Learn more at sencha.com.